Hey guys, it's Mocha, and this video is going to be all about how Fury Warriors are capable PvPers. For quite some time now, they have done terrible damage. But this patch and this expansion, I believe, has solved that. That being said, here are some clips of my damage as a Fury Warrior in PvP. Now that you guys have seen that, let me go in game and show you guys my gemming, my talents, and my rotation so you have a little bit of an idea of how I play my Fury Warrior. Alright guys, now that we're in game, the first thing I'm going to show you is my gemming. Now as you can see, I've got quite a few pieces of tyrannical gear and I'm still currently working on it. I had a slow few weeks because I actually ended up hanging out with a dude that I didn't get to see since Christmas, so it was the first time I seen him this year, and I spent a week hanging out with him. But as you can see, so far I've got my 5 out of 5 gladiator battle gear, the tyrannical, and I still need the back piece, the trinket, the two trinkets and the 2 rings. I also need the neck, and I also need my weapons. As everyone knows, I play as a Fury Warrior, so I need 2 of the weapons, which is going to suck. It's going to bleed my conquest points, but it's going to increase my damage a little bit more, so it's needed. But now for the gemming. As you guys can see on my helmet here, for the meta gem, I use the reverberating primal diamond. The reason why I use this is it's pretty self-explanatory. It's the only thing that warriors should be using for PvP as far as I'm concerned. You need that little bit of extra strength, and that increased critical effect really helps. Since last patch, I have taken all of my gems that increased my PvP power and PvP resilience, and I've switched them around just because they made it a little more they made those skills a little more secondary. I've taken the liberty of getting bold primordial rubies and putting them into every red slot, just because the extra strength increases my damage like a lot. I've noticed it since playing this patch from last patch. I've noticed that I've done quite a little bit more damage. For yellow gem slots, I use Smooth Sun's Radiance. The only reason why I use this is because there is maybe 2 different choices out there, but I picked this choice because all that extra critical strike actually adds up, and once you get a critical strike, they're big. So it helps out and it all adds up over time. So we talked about the red gem slot. Now for the blue gem slot, I did decide to stick with the Tense Imperial Amethyst, which does have PvP power on it. The only reason being is there really isn't another gem that appeals to warriors, including me, that gives a great enough benefit to where it'll allow me to take it over this one. So far this one has the only biggest benefit that I can see that I think would benefit me the most as a Fury Warrior. Of course, I'm not a jewel crafter, so I don't get any of the good gems. I have to stick with what I got, but I am a blacksmith, so the extra gem slots and the bracers in the hands really help. Alright guys, the next thing I'm going to show you is my talents. Now everyone knows that there's 6 tiers of talents, as you can see here. Now it's what you choose for your talents in those tiers that determine your playstyle and how you fight on the battlefield. For me personally, I did use Juggernaut for the first little bit of this expansion. The reason being is because every other warrior that I seen was using it, and I personally found myself to enjoy it. After a little while, I tried out double time. I didn't like the penalty of having a 20-second recharge time, even though you get 2 free charges I really didn't. And then I tried Warbringer, and I think that this is probably the best in my opinion, because not only do you charge and get Raej from it if you glyph right, but you also get to stun the target and slow their speed down. Now if you play your cards right, you can charge into them, get 15 Raej from the glyph, that if you glyph it right, you can get 15 Raej from this talent. Not only that, but you stun them for 3 seconds, and then after they're stunned, they're reduced by 50% their speed, which means that gives you the opportunity to use Staggering Shout, which is, if you can see in tier 3, which holds them in place for 5 seconds. I think that is really good. That gives you a chance to bring out a ton of burst on them, and if you play your cards right, you can really be successful with this talent. The second one is I chose Second Wind. Basically every warrior chooses this talent. The reason being is because it's out of mind, out of sight, plus it's probably the strongest talent out of this tier. Nobody wants to have to cast a healing ability if they're in the middle of a heavy fight. They want to be able to fight and then notice when they're really low on health that that talent is going to kick in and will save their ass. For me, that's what I really like. Impending Victory is basically just a stronger version of Victory Rush, but I really enjoy my Victory Rush whenever I get the chance to use it. It makes it all the more wild when you're low on health, you finally defeat somebody, and then you get to use it and you get brought back up to above wherever you were at by at least 10% or something like that, 20%. That's just my opinion on that one. And then, as I was talking about before, tier 3 I use Staggering Shout. I've already explained it before. It goes hand in hand with Warbringer. If you play your cards right, you can stun the target, which again can bring out really big burst. Tier 4, I picked Bladestorm. The reason why I picked Bladestorm is because I'm a Fury Warrior. When you're a Fury Warrior, you want to do lots of burst, as well as if you put it in a one-shot macro, that will just blow up your enemy, and it'll go hand in hand if you use Warbringer and Staggering Shout at the right times. So that's why I use Bladestorm. I didn't pick Shockwave because it's on a global cooldown now, and I felt that picking that talent was a waste of a talent on a good burst DPS. Don't get me wrong, it's a good talent and I would pick it. I just feel like I didn't need to use it, or I didn't want to use it because it's a waste of a talent in terms of arenas, although it is really good in arenas because you can CC very well with it. It's a very good crowd control ability. At least it was before this patch. And then there's Dragon Roar. I used to always use Dragon Roar. That's the first thing I used in this expansion, and it was the last thing I used before I picked Bladestorm and before they increased the little bit of damage that you did as a Fury Warrior. Now for the this is the 5th tier. For the 5th tier, I did use Mass Spell Reflection for the first little bit. The reason being is because I liked giving everyone in my raid, including myself, that little bit of extra spell defense. The reason why I have Safeguard is because I found myself doing a lot more arenas than I was BGs. And if I have Safeguard, I do a lot of 2s. So if I make a macro where I safeguard my friend, my arena partner, I can save his butt if he's low on health or if he needs my help. I can, in a matter of a second, take a lot of their damage away and save them. Vigilance, me including a lot of other warriors do not use this talent only because it's more of a PvE talent. Now for the last tier, this is one of the abilities that really increases your damage. The reason why I say this is because these are the ones that these are the abilities that are passives depending on how you use it. If you click it at the right time, if you use it at the right time, it's basically out of sight, out of mind, increases your damage, and you do a ton of it. I picked Avatar because I feel like it adds the most damage. Some people use Bloodbath, but that's only because they like the damage over time. I do not. I like my damage in their face at that moment, blowing them up. If they aren't like that, I feel like I'm failing. That's just me though. And then there's Stormbolt. The reason why I don't pick Stormbolt is just for the simple fact because it's a lot less useful in PvP in my opinion, because it doesn't do a lot of damage and it may CC, but it's not that great of a CC. As a matter of fact, I think Stormbolt and Shockwave are the two abilities that share the global cooldown for CC. Don't quote me on that, I'm not exactly sure, I haven't looked up on that or anything, but I think that may be the matter, which just makes it a lot less more appealing to the PvPers and a lot more appealing to, let's say, a tank for a PvE group. Alright guys, so for the last segment of this video, I am going to show you guys my rotation. Now me personally, I'm a firm believer that rotation is not mandatory as a PvPer. The reason why I say this is because you're not fighting artificial intelligence, so you're not necessarily standing in one place, using every ability that's your strongest, and utilizing it in a certain way to deal the most damage, and only moving every once in a while to get out of this strategic type of mechanic that Blizzard has created for that boss. You're fighting against another player, and this player will do everything to deal the most damage and to stay alive. That being said, he's going to move around, so it's going to be a lot harder for you to just stand in one place and deal damage. So what you have to do is have a rotation that you don't always follow, but a rotation that you'll follow when you're dealing damage until you need to cast these the spells and the abilities that you need to survive and defend yourself. So that being said, I'm going to show you guys my rotation. First, it starts with Battle Shout. The reason why I use Battle Shout is because it's a rage giver, like it gives me rage as I use it. It also increases your damage. Now you need that. You always need it and you'll always will need it, or else you're just not a good warrior. I'm sorry to say, but if you don't use Battle Shout, then you're not a good warrior. Unless you're in an arena with another warrior, you can switch the two. One can use Battle Shout, one can use Commanding Shout. Because you can switch that off that way, because you can't have two at the same time, they don't stack. Now that being said, the next ability that I use is Charge. This ability gives me Rage, and the talent that I have stuns them, and then it slows them down. I mean, what a better way to start off a match than to stun your opponent and then slow them down. And then after I use that, usually I would use Staggering Shout, but it really depends on what he's doing. If he's really moving around, then I'll use Staggering Shout to keep him in place. And if not, then I will just fight. I would use Colossus Smash. The reason why I use that is because it deals a lot of damage the first time you use it. And then it also does a Sundering Armor effect, so it increases the damage as long as that's up on your target. So you want to make sure that is always on your target and it's always on cooldown. After that, I use Bloodthirst. And then while that's on cooldown, not only is it a good ability to start off with, it's also healing you. And if you get the glyph for it, it heals you for a little more. So after I use Bloodthirst, I use Wild Strike, and I keep using Wild Strike until my Raging Blow pops. And if that procs, then I'll use that until it's not procced anymore. I'll keep using Wild Strike. When that's procced, I'll use it, and I'll just keep going back and forth with those. Now, you can use Berserker Rage to proc your Raging Blow, but what I do is I save that for in a situation when I'm stunned and kept in place. If I'm kept in place, I can pop Berserker Rage, which will sometimes get me out of that CC. Now, if I notice that the person I'm fighting is getting hit quite hard, then I'll just use my rotation. I'll slow him down with a hamstring, and then I'll use my normal rotation until he's low enough where I can use Execute until he's dead. But if I notice that I'm hitting him and he's not taking that much damage, then that's when I pop my one-shot macro, which includes all my buffs and Blade Storm. After I pop that, I let it go, and then I usually what I would do is I would use Heroic Leap to jump out of the way, and then charge back at him, which will stun him, and then I'll use Staggering Shout to keep him in place, and then that's when I just start using my normal rotation again to deal massive amounts of damage, which will usually kill the opponent. I'm going to demonstrate this right now, so. So I use Bloodthirst, and while it's on cooldown, I use Wild Strike, and I keep using Wild Strike until Bloodthirst is up again. And as you may know, and as you may notice here, I run out of Raej quite frequently, which is not exactly the bad thing, but it's not also a good thing either. But Raging Blow proc, so I'll use that, and then I'll just pop a one-shot macro. Place, and then this is when I would start my normal rotation and do tons and tons of damage, and 90% of the time it would result in my opponent's death and my victory. Alright guys, so that was the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. Please leave it a like, that helps me out a lot, helps my channel grow. Please subscribe if you guys want to see any more videos come out from me in the future. Remember to rate it, do please leave a comment. I'd love to hear you guys' feedback. Until next time, I'm Mocha, and see you in the next video.